Bismillah ar-Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear viewers, peace, freedom, human dignity. These are words we often hear in global conversations about justice. But in Gaza, these remain aspirations rather than lived realities. The word Samud in Arabic means steadfastness, the ability to remain firm despite adversity. It is this very word that has inspired a new international effort, the Global Sumud Flotilla, a group of ships, activists, and humanitarians from around the world setting sail with one mission: to challenge the ongoing blockade of Gaza. But what is this flotilla really about? What does it matter? And does it have the power to reshape the conversation around Palestine and Israel? Or is it destined to be another symbolic act that fades from the headlines? The idea of sending ships to Gaza is not new. In 2010, the Mavi Marmara flotilla drew global attention when it was intercepted, leading to deadly violence and a diplomatic storm. Since then, various international coalitions, especially the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, who attempted to sail to Gaza to break the blockade. The Global Sumud Flotilla builds on this legacy. Organized by activists, humanitarian groups, and solidarity movements across continents, it represents a coordinated attempt to remind the world that Gaza's siege has not ended, and that global citizens are willing to take risks to challenge it. This flotilla is not backed by governments, but by civil society. Its aim is not military, but symbolic and humanitarian. To understand the urgency behind this flotilla, we need to understand Gaza itself. Nearly 2.2 million people live in one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. For more than a decade, the region has faced a blockade that severely restricts the movement of people and goods. Electricity is limited, clean water is scarce, and medical supplies are constantly short. Unemployment is extremely high, and rebuilding after repeated conflicts remain almost impossible. For activists, this is not just about politics. It is about basic human survival. They argue that Gaza has become an open-air prison where civilians pay the price for a conflict they did not choose. The flotilla then becomes a message that the international community cannot ignore the humanitarian cost of this blockade. Of course, no discussions of Gaza is complete without politics. Israel argues that the blockade is necessary for its security, particularly to prevent weapons from reaching Hamas, the ruling authority in Gaza. Israeli leaders insist that while humanitarian aid is permitted through land crossings under inspection, unrestricted sea access poses too great a risk. On the Palestinian side, the blockade is seen as collective punishment, an attempt to weaken resistance by targeting civilians. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas both condemn the siege, though their approaches differ. Regional players like Egypt often balance between controlling their own borders and responding to Arab public opinion. Turkey has historically supported flotillas, while many Arab governments offer theoretical support but limited practical involvement. Meanwhile, the United States and much of Europe maintain a cautious position, recognizing Israel's security concerns while occasionally voicing humanitarian worries. This balance often leaves activists feeling that governments are unwilling to act, which is why they take matters into their own hands. The blockade of Gaza has sparked intense debate among legal scholars. Is it legal under international law? Israel argues it is a lawful measure of self-defense during an armed conflict. Critics, including the United Nations and numerous human rights groups, argue that it constitutes collective punishment, explicitly forbidden under the Geneva Convention. Reports from organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch consistently highlight the suffering of civilians and call for the blockade to be lifted. The Global Sumud Flotilla, therefore, frames itself not just as a humanitarian mission, but as a test of international law. Activists believe that by attempting to sail into Gaza, they are exercising the principle that unjust laws or practices must be challenged through peaceful resistance. Flotillas are not only about the ships, they are about the story. Media coverage plays a huge role in shaping global perception. In the past, Western mainstream media often echoed official government narratives, while independent and alternative outlets gave more attention to activists' voices. Social media has now changed the landscape. Campaigns, hashtags, and live stream allow activists to bypass traditional gatekeepers and speak directly to a global audience. Solidarity marches in European capitals, student protests in American universities, and voices of support from Africa, Asia, and Latin America show that this is not just a Middle Eastern issue, it is an international conversation. Sending a flotilla to Gaza is not without risks. Ships may be intercepted at sea, activists may be detained, and diplomatic crises can erupt between Israel and the countries of participants. Safety remains a genuine concern, as past flotillas have shown. Yet, activists argue that the risks are worth taking. For them, the presence of international citizens on these ships is a shield, a way to bring accountability and visibility to a crisis that is often ignored. Still, the question remains, does risking confrontation at sea advance peace, or does it deepen divisions? Beyond the practical goal of delivering aid, the Global Sumud Flotilla is rich with symbolism. It represents civil society standing up to power, non-violent resistance to military blockade, and solidarity that crosses national, cultural, and religious lines. It is a reminder that even in the most entrenched conflicts, people outside governments, ordinary citizens, can shape the narrative. Like other global movements of civil disobedience, it is less about the cargo on the ships and more about the message carried across the seas. Not everyone argues with the flotilla. Critics say it is more about publicity than real solutions. They argue that aid could be delivered through official channels without risking confrontation. Others believe the flotilla is a political stunt that provokes Israel rather than fostering negotiation. Even among supporters of Palestinian rights, there are debates. Are such symbolic gestures effective? Or should energy be directed towards diplomatic and institutional reforms? As we have seen, the Global Sumud Flotilla is more than just ships on water. It is a test of conscience for the international community. For some, it is a beacon of hope and solidarity. For others, it is an impractical and provocative gesture. The truth lies perhaps in between. Symbolic actions may not immediately change policies, but they keep conversations alive. They remind us that ordinary people across continents care enough to act. The future of Gaza, and indeed of peace in the Middle East, will not be decided by flotillas alone. But each effort, each act of steadfastness, smooth, adds another voice to the call for justice, dignity, and peace. Thank you for watching this episode of Insight. If you found this discussion meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe. Do you think the Global Sumud Flotilla is a real step towards change, or simply another symbolic act? Your perspective matters, and together we can keep these global conversations alive. Professor FAROOQI, signing off. Khuda Hafiz.